that area of the country, and I spent a summer in Montreal, and that was fabulous. I was at the University of Montreal.
All right, Dr. Tom, we are live on all social platforms.
Okay, it's time to rock and roll. It's Tuesday, 4 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock here in Costa Rica, 7 o'clock Eastern. And I'm going to get this right, so bear with me for a moment. I'm going to, it's midnight in Dublin and in London, 1 a.m. in Milan and most of Europe, 8:30 and 9:30 a.m. No, 9 o'clock in Brisbane, Australia, and I think it's 11 o'clock in New Zealand, and it's Facebook Live. So hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. And please say hello and send a few hearts or stars. It keeps me going when we do that. And tell us where you're from. I started off, some folks were a little early, and we started off in just acknowledging them. And I'm going to try and bring Facebook up here live and see if I can find it. I can never find it. So I'm going to wait for Marzi to come, because what pops up for me are all the past ones. So we'll get to it. I'll get to the shout outs of everyone, but I see Virginia's in Texas. Christina's in Costa Rica. Hello, Christina. Pura vida. Darlene's in very warm in Peterborough, Ontario. M. Sick is in Dallas, and the list goes on. Grace is in Boise. The list goes. And why do I do this? Because we are one family on this planet. We're, the very first picture, I had a poster in my office. I blew it up. It was a really nice photo, and it was from NASA, and I blew it up to a big poster size and framed it in the office. And it was a picture of planet Earth, the first time a satellite went around the moon, and it took a picture of Earth. And, there's no boundaries on the planet. We're all on one planet, and we have different cultures and different ideas, but we're one people on the planet. So I always like acknowledging where people are coming from, and just to acknowledge them and recognize them and where they're from. And it reinforces for me this concept that we get out of the tribal nature of who we are and how we usually live our lives. So today, for those of you that saw the announcement that went out, and if you didn't, we send out an SMS, a text message on your phone, to your phone, about who's the guest today and what are the topics. And today's one, I really liked it when the staff asked me, what do I want to do? And I said, well, let's talk about how do you maintain vitality. And there was a picture of Gio and I that was taken just a couple days ago on the beach, and it was a nice picture. And so I thought I'd talk a little today about a big picture overview. And as you have questions, just put them in the Q&A, and Ann will bring them up for me, and we can address some of them, probably most of them, and move this forward. But I thought I'd address, how do you keep enough energy in your bank account? I'm doing a talk in Dublin that's going to be how our immune system gets depleted, and it has to get depleted before you ever get sick. You only get sick because your immune system is unable to deal with what you've been exposed to, whether it's a toxic food or a bacteria or a virus. You don't get symptoms unless your immune system can't take care of the offending agent. And then it starts causing inflammation, excessive inflammation, and the result is you get sick. And so there's a bank account to the immune system. It's your reserves. And how do you maintain your reserves? How do you maintain resiliency and balance and energy and vitality? And as I started thinking about this afternoon, in the midst, I'm writing 2 presentations for Europe, And I just kept thinking about this. And the first thing I wanted to tell you about, one of my mentors is Jeffrey Bland, Dr. Jeffrey Bland, one of the greats in the world. And his mentor was Linus Pauling. And Jeffrey is Linus Pauling's protege. And Dr. Pauling is the only man ever to win the Nobel Prize twice. There was one woman who did also, but Pauling is the only man. So he's a really smart guy. But he wasn't so smart. After he won his Nobel Prize in chemistry, people looked to him as an expert and an authority. And the atomic bomb had just been dropped on Nagasaki and Hiroshima in 1945. And a couple of years after that, there was a lot of discussion about the dangers of atomic energy. And they went to Pauling often. Many different reporters went to Pauling and asked his opinion. And he was always very politically correct and didn't rock the boat. And his wife said, "You're not authentic. You aren't speaking your truth as to what's going on for you." And she said, "You need to speak your truth." And he kind of held the party line that you don't want to rock the boat too much and all of that. She said, "Until you speak the truth, you are not sleeping in this bedroom anymore." And she threw him out. And a Nobel Prize winner is sleeping on the couch in another room, right? And it didn't take too long before he came out and took a stand on the benefits and the potential dangers of atomic energy. And he then won a Nobel Prize a couple of years later. It was the Nobel Peace Prize. I think it was 52 or 53, I'm not sure what year, but he won the Nobel Prize twice. And I have an interview of him when he was in his 80s. He's got a black beret on, he's got it tilted to the side a little bit, kind of a dapper looking guy. And this quote that he said was, yes, my wife and I take 18,000 milligrams of vitamin C a day, and when we get old, we'll take more. Well, wait a minute, he was 85, and he said, when we get old. Just spry of spirit, right? And it was after that I decided, well, if it's good enough for him, and so I take vitamin C every day. That's the first thing I do. When I wake up in the morning, some of you have heard me say, first thing you do, everybody goes to the bathroom usually. And the next thing, very next thing, 2 big glasses of water. And within a few days of forcing that down, you will find that you're looking forward to the water because it hydrates you. And I'm going to date myself here, but in earlier days, batteries in cars, if you're going to go on a trip, you check your fuel tank, make sure there's enough fuel, you check the oil, you check the radiator, and then you pull the caps on the battery to make sure there's enough water in there, because electricity has to have enough water for it to travel through inside the battery. And that's not true anymore. They've upgraded the batteries, but that was the case in the 60s and 70s. And that's our body. Our body needs to be hydrated well enough for the brain and the nervous system to work efficiently. So you need to hydrate. And it's 1/3 to 1/2 ounce of water per pound body weight per day. It just depends on whether, if you're exercising aggressively, sweating a lot, or if you're doing saunas regularly, sweating a lot, it's 1/2 ounce per pound body weight. If not, then 1/3 of an ounce is probably okay for most everyone. But that's, if you weigh 150 pounds, that's 50 ounces of water a day. And you may think you're drinking a lot of water currently because you're sipping on your mug all day long. But, well, how many mugs are you doing? Well, I do 2. Okay, well, they're 12-ounce mugs. That means 24 ounces of water. You're not half of what you need. You need 50 ounces of water a day. And they go, oh. So you really want to measure how much water you're drinking for a few days until you get the hang of this thing. So the first thing is water. And I talk about that because when I get up and go to the bathroom and then I go out into the kitchen and I pour a glass of water for myself and one for Marzi, she's still sleeping, but the water's waiting for her. I put a scoop of Vitality C in there. And that's 4,000 milligrams. And I take that usually once a day, but sometimes 2 to 3 times a day, depending on how hard I'm pushing. So I'm not withdrawing at 18,000 on a regular, but if I get sick or if I feel I've been exposed, I'll do the Pauling protocol. And the Pauling protocol is you start with 500 to 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C, and you take it first thing in the morning. Every waking hour, you take another 500 to 1,000 milligrams, and you're counting how many you're taking. So let's say, to round it off, it's 1,000 milligrams per serving. And you're doing that every waking hour until you get loose bowels or diarrhea. If you get a little loose bowels or diarrhea, stop and say, okay, how many vitamin C? Let's see, I had 1, 2, 3. Okay, I had 12, so 12,000 milligrams of vitamin C. And then you got loose bowels, so you stop there. The next day you don't take any. The day after that, you take 75% of that initial dose. So if it was 12,000, 75% of that is 9,000. So now you count out 9,000 milligrams of vitamin C. So that would be, if you're using the Vitality C, it would be 2 scoops and a little bit more. If you're using the GSC with bioflavonoids, they're each 1,000. So that would be 9 tablets a day. You just, whatever you've got. And you keep taking that dose every day, not all at once. You space it out during the day. And you keep taking that dose until you get loose bowels or diarrhea. It may be 1 day, it may be 8 days. But 8 days later, all of a sudden you got diarrhea. Why, what's going on? Oh, the vitamin C. And then you stop for a day, and then you take 75% of that dosage. So that would be, if you were at 9, now you're at about 6, somewhere around that. And you take 6 a day, 6,000 milligrams a day, until you find the dose where you don't get diarrhea anymore. That's the dose your body needs for the lifestyle that you're currently living. The highest concentration of vitamin C is in your adrenal glands. They're the glands that handle the stress of life. And if you don't have enough vitamin C, your adrenal glands can't function at their optimum to help you deal with the stress of life, and you burn out much quicker. So you want to know how much vitamin C to take? You do the Pauling protocol, and maybe you do that protocol every 6 months, or if you feel like you're coming down, oh man, I got exposed, I'm coming down to something. You start pounding it down right away, every waking hour until you get loose bowels, and then you stop there. Okay, it's a waste to take any more because I've hit my threshold. And then a day later, for 1 day, you don't take any. Then the next day, you take 75% of that dosage, and every day. And then you taper back down to whatever the dose is that you don't get diarrhea anymore. And that's the dose that you stay at. So that's the first thing in my arsenal is vitamin C. And critically important because we're all dealing with way too much stress. And so you want the stress gland, the adrenal glands, to be functioning at their best. And when I first came out in practice, the really buzzwords, where today we talk about chronic fatigue and Epstein-Barr, and they're very common. The really common buzzwords in 1980 were hypoglycemia, meaning your blood sugar is low, and it's still very, very common, more so than ever. And hypoadrenia, meaning your adrenal glands aren't functioning very well. And if your adrenal glands are not functioning very well, because if you stand up too quickly from a sofa or bed, you get a little lightheaded. Whoa. And then you're okay, but for a moment, you're a little lightheaded. That's a sign that your adrenals are not responding to standing up quickly, and it's their job to do that. Or if you go outside, even on a cloudy day, and you squint, like you're looking straight into the sun, so bright lights bother you. I'll explain that one. The way you can tell how your adrenals are functioning is kind of a general thing. It's not really specific. It's specific for the adrenals, but it's not pinpoint specific. It's just yes or no. Go into the bathroom with a flashlight, and a bathroom that doesn't have a window, if you have one in your house, or do it at night when there's no light coming in. And turn the flashlight on the bathroom and angle it down to the floor, and then turn the light off in the bathroom. But there's a little light in the room because you're angling the flashlight down to the floor. Then you walk up to the mirror and you get really close to look at your face in the mirror, but you really can't see because it's dark in the room. There's a flashlight there somewhere, but it's dark in the room. And turn the flashlight off, then bring the flashlight up and angle it towards your eye, not in the front, but to the side, and turn the flashlight on. As soon as you turn it on, you're looking in the mirror, you're going to see that the pupil, the black part of the eye, is nice and big, and it gets small really quick. That's a good response because the pupil is like the aperture in a camera. If there's not much light in the room, you open the aperture really wide to take a picture. If there's a lot of light in the room, you close the aperture down. So there's two controls on really fancy cameras. Some of them are automatic now, but one is for focus, but the other is for light, and it's the aperture. So the pupil of the eye is the aperture of how much light gets into your nerves carrying the message back into the brain. If there's a lot of light in the room, the aperture should be really small. So once again, you've turned the light off in the room, in the bathroom, you go up to the mirror, you turn the flashlight off, bring the flashlight up to the side of your eye, not in the front, but to the side of the eye, turn the flashlight on, the pupil will be nice and big. It should get small really quick. Hold the flashlight there. It should stay small while the light's shining in the side of your eye. You aren't looking into the light, you're looking into the mirror, so it's a side light entrance, right? But it should stay small. But what happens for so many people is that you turn the flashlight on, the aperture gets small, but then within 5 to 15 seconds, it starts pulsating. And for some people, it gets small, but then it bloats right back up again. That's a really blown out, wrong word, really depleted adrenal system when it just flashes back up again and the light's still in the eye and you're like squinting now like that. So there's too much, the aperture's open too wide. So it's a general screen. Do you need to address adrenal function? Critically important, because the adrenals handle the stress of life. And what takes us down is too much stress causing too much inflammation in our body, killing off cells that eventually take us over the limit. And now we start getting symptoms, but we keep doing the lifestyle that's causing the inflammation, killing off cells wherever our genetic vulnerability is. The adrenal glands are supposed to stop all of that. They're supposed to handle the stress of life. They make 11 different hormones. 11 different hormones. And the adrenal glands are the size of a walnut. They sit on top of each kidney. So the kidney is like the size of my fist. The adrenal gland is like the size of the 2 knuckles of my finger. They're really small. They sit on top of the kidneys on both sides. And they're supposed to be the size of a walnut. Now they took young men, 19 to 24-year-old men, who unfortunately died of some type of trauma. Healthy men that had no health problems whatsoever. And on autopsy, they find that the average size of the adrenal glands for a healthy young man is the size of a walnut. Then they took men of the same age who died of some disease, cancer, or whatever the disease is. Their adrenal glands are the size of a peanut. Now, wait a minute. The gland that handles the stress of life, when people die of a disease, their gland is the size of a peanut, and it's supposed to be the size of a walnut? Yes. Well, how do I get my adrenal glands bigger again? So that you build every cell in your body regenerates, every single cell. When you create the environment around the cell, I'm going to make up a number. Let's say your adrenals are functioning at a 5.4. When that cell reproduces, it reproduces as a 5.4 because the environment is an inflammatory environment. When you change the environment and you create a less inflammatory environment, this cell reproduces as a 5.5 because you're functioning a little better. There's less inflammation. And then it reproduces as a 5.6, and then a 5.7, and then a 6.2, and a 7.4, and an 8.1. And you keep doing these anti-inflammatory things, and your adrenal glands are rebuilding themselves stronger and stronger. Your energy gets stronger and stronger. 6 months or a year later, you see somebody you've not seen in a year. Wow, what happened to you? You look really great, man. Well, you know, I was in hypoadrenia. My adrenal glands were the size of a peanut. I rebuilt them to the size of a walnut. Well, how did you do that? One cell at a time. It's a really slow process, right? But that's the adrenal glands. And I went down that little rabbit hole just now because vitamin C. The highest concentration of vitamin C is in the adrenal glands, and you really want good functioning adrenal glands. Critically important. Okay, so we've got a question from Amanda on Facebook. She says, hi, from Sydney, Australia. It's 9 I got that right. Thank you, Amanda. Well, no, I'm sorry, I can't do that. I cheated. I used my iPhone to tell me what time it was, but 9 a.m. If your dairy zoomer is positive, what part of the zoomer will determine if you can use ghee or not? Really good question. Excellent question. It's the milk butyrophilins. That if you have elevated antibodies to the butyrophilins, you can't have ghee. Because butyrophilins are the small amount of protein in the membrane around the fat molecule that makes up ghee. So if you've got elevated antibodies to butyrophilins, you can't have ghee. If you do not have elevated antibodies to butyrophilins, people with dairy sensitivity can have ghee. It's just fine for them. And they really appreciate it because it's not quite the same as butter. Ghee is clarified butter. You know, if you melt butter in a pan at really low heat, you get this golden amber liquid and this white crud on the top of it. Well, the white crud is the casein, the protein, but the golden amber liquid is ghee, clarified butter. Really good question, Amber. Maggie's on Instagram. What test should I ask my GP to order for my annual physical? I'd love to know if I'm on the right track. Oh, that's a really good question, Maggie. And if you go to our website, or Ann will put the links here for the Wheat Zoomer and the Neural Zoomer Plus. Not the Neural Zoomer, because that looks at 5 markers. The Neural Zoomer Plus looks at 53 markers. And you do those tests because the most likely area where people are manifesting inflammation that they don't know about, excessive inflammation. And once again, guys, inflammation is not bad for you. Excessive inflammation is bad for you. So the most likely place where you're going to identify excessive inflammation is in the brain. So that's where we look to begin with. So we got a guest here. Come here. Come here. Oh, he smacked me with the brush. So here's Gio, and with his little hairbrush, he just took a bath. And so he's looking at a picture of him and me together and wondering what I've got in my ear. So so say hi. Well, actually, I don't even know why I got it in my ear because I'm not talking myself. So thank you, Gio. I don't even need that. As long as you guys can still hear me. Ann, can you hear me okay? Ann?
Yep, I can hear you. I can hear you better with the other mic though.
Okay, good. Then I'll go back to it once Gio's done chewing on it. So this is his moment to say hello, and he's not quite saying hello very often yet. He's getting there, but not yet. Oh, good. Marzi got me on my iPhone with Facebook Live. Okay, let's say bye-bye. Say bye.
I'm going to make cookies.
Bye. Bye-bye. Okay. Thank you. All right, I'm going to plug back in here so you guys can hear me a little clearer. Okay, there we go. And I've got my phone now, and Steph Neckerman is here. Where are you, Steph? What part of the world are you in? Kat says, sweet Geo. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. And put the links in here. Good, thanks, Ann, for that. Shanquila says, hi, Dr. Tom. How can I raise my blood pressure? I've been told that it's low normal at 100, but it hasn't always been that way. What are your thoughts of low blood pressure? Well, my blood pressure is usually about 105/60, and my pulse is usually, well, I guess in the last few months is probably about 62. It used to be in 54, something like that. And I'd like to think I'm a mellow fellow, but it's just being really fit that does that. So if you're at 100, as long as you've got vitality and you're not feeling that you're sluggish, I wouldn't worry about it at all. But to enhance your blood pressure, you don't want to bring up the blood pressure, but you want, unless you've got bad circulation, cold hands and feet, not enough energy, your brain, you got brain fog all the time because blood's having a hard time getting up there, then of course you want to bring it up. But the first thing I would suggest to you is aerobic exercise. And that's one of the things I wanted to bring up tonight, later, but I'll do it now, is we all need to include as our baseline of exercise, aerobic exercise, which means you're burning fat for fuel. That's what aerobic means. You're using oxygen and burning fat for fuel. And when you do it consistently, 3 to 5 times a week, it's the most effective detox over a long-term detox, is to keep your system working and flushing out in your aerobic range. How do you determine your aerobic range? You wear a pulse monitor, and you set the pulse monitor to the range of 180 minus your age plus or minus 5. 180 minus your age plus or minus 5. So I'm 70. So that would be 180 minus my age. That would be 110. Plus or minus 5 means 105 to 115. That's the range that I should be exercising in for 30 minutes, 5 times a week. When you do that, when you can work, it might take you a month or 2 months to work up to 5 times. Who cares if it takes 6 months? You're talking about a lifestyle habit for the rest of your life. When you can do it 5 days a week, 30 minutes, the science is really clear. You build more brain cells and you increase the volume of the memory center of your brain, called the hippocampus, in 1 year by 2%. That means you just put more RAM up there. You can hold more memory. Aerobic exercise, 30 minutes, 5 days a week, you increase the size of the hippocampus by 2%. Unheard of 15, 20 years ago. The technology wasn't available to measure that. Now we know. And now we know that you can. So that's the goal. Now, the only exceptions to that formula, if you've been diagnosed with a disease of any type, diabetes, high blood pressure, autoimmune diseases, instead of 180, it's 175 minus your age, plus or minus 5. That's the one exception. And there's one other exception. If your pulse, your resting pulse, is below 72. So my resting pulse being somewhere around 64 to 66 most of the time means that I'm about 8 points below my resting pulse. Oh, and how do you know where your resting pulse should be? Hold on, let me just grab something. You get a pulse oximeter. These things are only $30 on Amazon, $30 to $40, and you get a pulse ox. And when I put my finger in here, you just put your finger in there like that. And within, let's see, 5 seconds, it tells me that my pulse ox is 98 right now, and my pulse is at 62. Pulse ox is the percentage of oxygen in your bloodstream. And this is one of the simple tools you use to check yourself on a regular basis. And you want your pulse ox to be above 96. And it also measures your pulse. So mine's at 65, 64, 66. So right now I'm about 6 points below that break off of 72. And if that's the average, if that's the ballpark average for me, then instead of using 180 as my starting point, I'm about 8 points below. So I would go to 172, 8 points below, minus your age. So that would make it 108. 108? No, 8 points below would be 172 minus 70, 102, plus or minus 5. So then I'd be at about 98 to 108. So I'd say 95 to 110. I just round it off. And that's where I set my alarm for me when I'm exercising. Sometimes I go for a walk and we're in a hilly area here, and that gets my pulse up high enough. I don't have to run. And I've done lots of marathons and lots of triathlons in my life, and I'm not in that kind of shape anymore, but sometimes walking gets my pulse into my aerobic range. And I go, what? Really? Okay. And I listen. I don't say, yeah, I could do it. I'm a man. I've done 18 marathons and 30 or 35 triathlons. I can do it. Yeah. Don't do that stupid stuff. Listen to your body. My mentor, Dr. George Goodhart, always said, body language never lies. You just need to learn how to read body. Okay, so we've talked about vitamin C, a little about the adrenal glands, testing the adrenal glands and seeing what you've got. Next on the priority list, after I wake up in the morning, I take my vitamin C. Next on the list are my adaptogens. Adaptogens help you adapt in life. The rule of thumb is with adaptogens, there's 3 criteria that you have to meet to be an adaptogen. First, it does no harm. They're safe. And you've heard of these adaptogens like ginseng and rhodiola. They're safe. The second is that they are not tissue specific, meaning this is not just for your liver. Ginseng, we know, is a tonifier. It kind of brings your whole body up. Some studies show the brain works better. Some studies show energy goes a little bit better. Some studies show that the liver detoxes a little bit better with ginseng, but it's not tissue specific. It's global in its effect. And I don't remember the third one right now. We'll get back to that. But I've been taking adaptogens since 2011. So just over 10 years now, and they've completely changed my life. That my vitality, my endurance, my resilience is much better than it was before taking the adaptogens. And until recently, I've put 150,000 miles or so a year on flying all over the world, to teach. And it's the adaptogens that I credit with the adaptogens and GS support packs. But the adaptogens I credit with giving me that extra support that I can notice. So how do adaptogens work? What is this thing with adaptogens? If you're going to build a house, we're going to build a home soon, and you get the plans, that's your DNA, the plans of how your body is built. That's your DNA. Then you hire a general contractor to build the house for you, right? So all of the supplies are brought up to the home site in a big trucks. They bring all the bricks and the stone and the wood and the glass and the doors, and they bring it all up to the home site and they unload the truck. Who's going to control and guide where everything goes? When you take nutrition, you've put stuff into your bloodstream. Your bloodstream's just a highway. Everything's going in the same direction, but it's just a highway. Who controls where this stuff goes. Who's the general contractor in your body? Where do they go? And there are a number of them, the general contractors, if you will. But how do you talk to the general contractors to get them to do their job? That's what adaptogens do. Oh, that's number 3 of the 3, is that they don't bring you up unless you're down. If you're down, they bring you up. If you're high, if you got anxiety, you're running high, they calm you down. So they bring you back into balance. It doesn't matter what state you're in. They bring you into balance. So they're not like a drug that's got a target specific effect. Rather, they talk to the general contractors and get them to build the new cells. You were 5.4, then you're going to be a 5.5, then a 5.6. So they talk to the cells to regenerate healthier tissue. All of this is a prerequisite understanding that you stop throwing gasoline on the fire. And for those of you that haven't heard me talk about that stuff before, you'll see it in my books and our webinars and that are at theDr.com. You'll see it all there. But you have to stop the lifestyle that's causing the inflammation. But then how do you rebuild a healthier you? How do you build from a 5.5 to a 5.6 to a 5.8 to a 6.4 to a 7.2 to an 8.3? How do you do that? Adaptogens accelerate that process dramatically. And I had the privilege of meeting my now friend and partner, Dan Moriarty, who is a master herbalist, putting adaptogens together. His grandmother was an herbalist in Hungary. His mother was an herbalist in Mexico. And Dan grew up there, and she would say, Dan, go out into the jungle and get these herbs for me. So, oh, Mom, because he's playing with his friends as a 10-year-old. Go get them. And so he'd have to go out and get these herbs and bring them back. And Dan said that the villagers would come to her for help. There was no doctor in the village. And they always treated her with such great respect because she helped them so much. And they'd bring a chicken or some eggs or something for exchange. Nice story of olden days. But Dan had no interest in any of that. Surfing, he was a semi-pro surfer. They were surfing in Mexico, and they were at some surf camp, decided to go out and sleep on the beach with his girlfriend that night, and he got bit by a scorpion that put him into anaphylaxis. He almost couldn't breathe. And girlfriend ran back to the village or to the camp. The packers came immediately, and somebody went off into the jungle to go get the local healer. This guy comes back. He sees what's happening. He tells him to boil water and goes and gets some herbs in the forest, comes back, throws them in the water, makes some tea. And by then, Dan said that his vision, now a semi-pro surfer can hold their breath for 3 to 4 minutes. So his breathing was exceptional as a surfer, but he was concentrating on the next breath. That's all he could. He couldn't move, just trying to concentrate on getting his lungs to open up because the scorpion was a very poisonous scorpion. And he said that his vision had narrowed down to a toilet paper roll. He could just see through a toilet paper. He knew he was going out. And all of a sudden, this little Indian guy with jet black straight hair is screaming at him and to drink this, and he pours this stuff down his throat, and within 2 efforts to breathe, he goes, and he can breathe again. And the guy said to the packers, because he only spoke the Indian language, local Indian, he didn't speak Spanish like all the packers there in Mexico. And he said to them, stay away from smoke, protect the lungs, and you'll be fine. And the guy left. So Dan went to find this guy a couple days later and to thank him. And he asked him, he couldn't speak to him because the guy only spoke the Indian language, but he asked, what was it? And the guy looks around, he walks over, he grabs something, gives him a leaf, and Dan puts it in his pocket. When he gets back, he has it analyzed. Turns out it's huaco, which is where coumadin comes from. It's the plant that coumadin comes from, which is a blood thinner. But if you look at coumadin, one of its benefits is that it's also a vasodilator. It opens up the arterioles in the lungs to breathe better. So after that experience, Dan went to this guy, he gave him a leaf, but he's trying to talk to him to thank him, couldn't say anything. And this guy was about 4'4", 4'6", really small guy. Dan said this guy just grabbed him by the forearms and looked in his eyes. And he said that he felt a transmission. And this guy's, for lack of better words, the transmission was, go out in the world and do good. Like, get out of here, go out in the world and do good. So Dan went home and said to his mother, I want to learn the herbs. And he told her what happened. She said, you don't want to learn the herbs. You're too wild. No, I want to learn the herbs. I want to devote my life to this, save my life. His mother said, it takes a year to learn one herb. Dan said he giggled. No, it does. Because if you harvest ginseng in the spring, the level of ginsenosides in that plant are very different than if you harvest ginseng in the fall. The ginsenosides are very different in the fall. So you watch a plant through an entire year cycle to get a sense of the benefits of that plant. So Dan has now spent the last 45 years, he's my age, 45 years in studying the herbs. And he puts these things together like nothing I've ever seen. And I've been in the nutrition business for 40 years. And I'll actually tell you what happened because it's relevant. In 2012, my sister called and said, it's time. Hospice says it's time to disconnect mom. She had been in a coma for 8 days. They said she's not going to wake up. And she had been in my sister's house in a hospital bed and all of that. So I said, okay, I'll be there tomorrow. And so everything stops in life when that's going to happen, right? So I packed a couple of suits because I knew we're going to have funeral and estates, all that stuff. And I flew back to Detroit. And I had just started taking my adaptogenic herbs for a few months at that point. So I brought them with me, knowing that I was going to be under a lot of stress. So I got home to my sister's house at 2 a.m. because the flights were late. Everybody's asleep. And I knew the code to go in. And so I went to my mother's bedroom, and there she was in a fetal position on her side with her eyes half open and her mouth open and just breathing. And I gave her a kiss and there was no response. And I said, I'm here, Mom. I'm here. And then I thought, why not? What the hell? Why not? So I gave her some of my Sunhorse, and the product is called Ultimate Energy. Sunhorse is the name of the company. The product's called Ultimate Energy. I gave her Ultimate Energy, and I set my alarm to wake up in 2 hours because she might die during the night for all we knew, to give her some more. And then I woke up at 6 a.m. My sister and I had to go to a meeting, and I gave her some more. So I gave her 3 doses in the course of about 4 or 5 hours. And we had to leave, got back about noon, and hospice comes every day to my sister's house to sit with our mother. They bathe her and they play Frank Sinatra music because she really likes Frank Sinatra. And we come home about noon. There's our mother in a wheelchair, sitting there, said, hi, Tom. My sister started crying. She'd been in a coma for 8 days. We were about to pull a plug to kill her because they said she'd never wake up. And I, like any good doctor, just looked at her in disbelief and said, give her 2 ounces 3 times a day, right? But our mother lived 6 weeks, 6 weeks, conscious, in no pain, but just completely gone. She had sepsis, very bad. And she was at the kitchen table for meals and would smile and try and say a few words, but she was with us for 6 weeks. That's when I went back and I found Dan, and he said, hey, Doc. And I said, Dan, I'm in. He said, in for what? And I told him what happened, and his jaw dropped because he thought we had an energy drink here. That's why it was called Ultimate Energy, because it just picks you up. And I said, no, it's so much more than that, because I knew what was happening. It was turning on the genes of anti-inflammation and calming down the genes of inflammation. And that's when I became chief medical director of Sunhorse Energy. So we'll put the links in here. Ultimate Energy is a product that my mother took, and so many people have written in about the benefits of it. The product for men that I take is called Mojo 8.5, and it's Ultimate Energy plus 3 other herbs for men. And the product for women is called Thrivagen, and it's Ultimate Energy plus 2 other herbs for women. And I did a study on Thrivagen with 12 or 14, I don't remember, women who were going through change of life and had hormone problems, hot flashes, really bad and all that. Every single one of them benefited from taking Thrivagen, every one of them. And so I would suggest you try Ultimate Energy or Mojo or Thrivagen, but give it a 3-month trial. Order enough for 3 months. So that you give it a fair shot. And if it doesn't help you, it doesn't help you. But in 3 months, then you say, well, you know, I think it's helping a little bit, because it doesn't jack you up like 2 shots of espresso. It just kind of turns the lights up a little bit brighter across the board. You know, I'm talk about turning the lights up. I'm at my desk here, and here's my fog cutter. Well, you can't see it because I've got this screen on, unless I bring it close to my face. But this is Fog Cutter, and it's our product for cutting the fog, the brain fog out. And I take it every day. It's on my desk, you know, so I can get my work done every day. So those are the 4 products we're going to post here for you guys that you can take a look at. So that's the first 2 products I wanted to talk about, was vitamin C and the adaptogens. And there's no reason why you can't take the adaptogens. I don't care what you've been diagnosed with. There's no known side effects to them. They're generally regarded as safe. They're as safe as can be. And the sicker you are, the more you need them, in my opinion. Let's take a look at another question now. Oh, yeah. So on the test for your GP to order, it's the Wheat Zoomer and the Neural Zoomer Plus. Let me just complete on that. The Wheat Zoomer, because you want to confirm that people have a problem with wheat and that your immune system's fighting it, because that's draining the bank account of your immune system when you eat wheat, if your immune system's producing antibodies to wheat. That's why Professor Schoenfeld, the godfather of autoimmunity in Tel Aviv, published a paper about 9 or 10 months ago now on gluten, the benefits of a gluten-free diet in non-celiac autoimmune diseases. And he listed about 20 or 25 different autoimmune diseases that get better on a gluten-free diet. Not every single person, but somewhere around 73, 75% of the people with Hashimoto's thyroid get better on a gluten-free diet, and psoriasis get better on a gluten-free diet. And so the Wheat Zoomer is the first test we recommend. And with the Wheat Zoomer, it includes the most sensitive test for leaky gut, which is the gateway in the development of all autoimmune diseases. Some people here have heard me talk about this. Many people haven't. My books elaborate in great detail. But the gateway in the development of autoimmune disease is leaky gut. So this is the most sensitive test. Do I have a leaky gut? So that's the Wheat Zoomer. And then the second test in the same blood draw that you do is the Neural Zoomer Plus, because it looks at 53 markers of inflammation in the brain. And for those of you that don't know, there in 4 years between 2013 and 2017, Blue Cross Blue Shield tells us there has been a 407% increase in the diagnosis of Alzheimer's in 30 to 44-year-olds. 407% increase in 4 years. That the brain is the canary in the coal mine. That the brain is the easiest place to look and see, do I have inflammation in my body right now? And so I have everyone do the Neural Zoomer Plus. And quite honestly, no one has come back negative on a first test. A few people come back negative to the Wheat Zoomer, which is great. Congratulations. You haven't crossed that line of tolerance. Most people don't. I'd say 19 out of 20 people tested have a problem with wheat. but no one has come back negative on the NeuroZoomer Plus. This is just the biomarker that you start with so you can compare in 6 months or a year that, okay, has what I've been doing working? Because I think my brain's functioning better. But you go back and do the test again. And if you had 13 markers elevated the first time and now you have 4, you're doing great. Stay with it. Stay with the protocol. You're doing great. It's going to take a little bit longer. So some people, it takes up to 2 years to get that test normal. But the incidence of brain inflammation causing brain deterioration, producing dementia, is going up exponentially across the board. It's estimated to bankrupt Medicare and Medicaid by 2050, completely bankrupt it, and nobody knows what to do about it. Well, this is what you do. You find out if you've got inflammation in your brain and you start dealing with the inflammation to get rid of it. Okay, let's move on a little bit or we're going to be stuck here. Let's see. Colin says, just tried the flashlight at the side of my eye in a dark room. The pupil was small when I turned on the light and remained the same size. Way to go, Colin. Way to go. And you're a regular here. I recognize your name and you're in England. Thank you for being a regular. But what you're doing is working, man. That means your adrenals are up to the task. Most likely, that's one test. The other test is that you do your blood pressure sitting down and then stand up and do the blood pressure again immediately. And the systolic should go up 2 to 4 points when you stand up. Most people, it goes down a couple of points. That's why I ask, if you jump up from a sofa or bed, you get lightheaded because your blood pressure dropped. That's another indicator of adrenal insufficiency. So Colin, not now, stay here with us for now, but do blood pressure sitting and then stand up and take the blood pressure immediately on standing up. And it should go up 2 to 4 points. If you've got that, your adrenals are in great shape, man. You got walnut adrenals. That's a bumper sticker. I got walnut adrenals, and nobody will know what you're talking about, or very few people in the world will know what you're talking about, but you can drive with pride that you've got walnut adrenals. Mary on Zoom asks, as you get older, should we be taking a calcium supplement along with magnesium? I hear a lot about magnesium deficiency, but isn't it as important to balance with calcium? Could that be a cause of lots of nighttime leg cramping? Really good question, Mary. It is possible to have a insufficiency of calcium, but unlikely given our diets, unlikely for most of us. When they look at our ancestors just a couple hundred years ago, and then going back much further, they find that the ratio of magnesium to calcium in the food on the planet that our ancestors would eat, the ratio of calcium to magnesium was 1 to 1. In today's society, the ratio of calcium magnesium is 4 to 1 to 6 to 1, meaning we're getting 4 to 6 times the amount of calcium that our ancestors ate. And what are all these diseases we get? They're calcium storage diseases. Arthritis is a calcium storage disease. Hardening of the arteries. It's not cholesterol, it's calcium that's hardening the arteries. And when our bodies just get hardened as we age, it's calcium. So most people do not need extra calcium. It's easy to find out. You just do a blood test and find out what your blood calcium level is. Most people need more magnesium and more minerals in general, especially if you're sweating, if you're doing aerobic exercise and you work up a sweat, or if you're doing saunas, if you've heard me talk about saunas and the great benefits to saunas to detox, you need to replenish your minerals. I'm doing a heavy metal test right now, and I'm taking some things there's magnets to pull the heavy metals out of storage in my fat tissue and in my bones and in my brain. But these chelating agents, these sponges that soak up these heavy metals, they also grab your minerals. So I'm taking 6 tablets of minerals a day right now. I'm taking a lot. Normally I don't take any, I just take the GS support packs, and that's plenty. But now I'm taking extra minerals because I'm doing a special thing right now, so sometimes you have to vary it. But the calcium to magnesium ratio, not common that you need more calcium. It may be depending on how poor the diet is, but if you're eating the rainbow diet that we always talk about, not necessary to take extra calcium, in my opinion, unless your blood test says you got a calcium deficiency. And if you do, then of course you need to take it. Jill on Facebook says, I always look forward to Tuesdays at 4 p.m. in your Facebook Live. Well, thank you, Jill. I'm the only one in my house who eats strictly gluten-free. I make sandwiches and pasta for my children. Will I not get gluten exposure as long as I wash my hands and put the utensils and plates in the dishwasher? I use dedicated utensils and pots for gluten items. Well, you know, there's a Rolling Stones song. When you play with me, you're playing with fire, right? So you're playing with fire, Jill. And to ensure a little more that you're safe, I would take Wheat Rescue or E3 Advanced Plus or both of them before you start eating every meal. And we'll put the links in here to those because they digest 99% of any inadvertent exposure to wheat that you might get. So, and you know, if you can get the, I talked about the wheat zoomer, Jill, and the lab has just announced it's the best lab in the world right now. And I look at labs all over the world when I travel, but their technology is the best in the world. It's second to none. And they actually came out a couple of years ago with a finger prick test to do the wheat zoomer and many of the other zoomers. But they just sent out the announcement they are not doing finger prick test anymore for all the other zoomers. They're saving the supplies they have left for the wheat zoomer because supplies are really short right now on the things they need for the finger prick test. I mean, it's a great test and it's extremely accurate, but they can't supply all the demand for the corn zoomer and the peanut zoomer and all the others. So they're saving the supplies they have left for the wheat zoomer. So you can do the wheat zoomer with a blood draw or with a finger prick. So for your kids, you can do a finger prick, just poke their finger, you know, and find out if your husband agrees to test. The rule is test, don't guess, but I would suggest you find out if they've already crossed the line, because it may not manifest in symptoms for a few years, but it will. It absolutely will, because they're creating excessive inflammation because you just measured it in the most accurate test on the planet today. Jennifer on YouTube says, hello, Dr. Tom. Hello, Jennifer. How does low-level carbon monoxide poisoning contribute to immune decline? Silver lining, 3 years later, and mosquitoes still do not bite us. Okay. Carbon monoxide poisoning will cause severe inflammation, systemic inflammation. And but the main inflammation is in the brain because you're breathing it. So it goes right up your nose. And once that's gone on long enough, it can become self-perpetuating. So you stop the carbon monoxide exposure, or you stop eating gluten. So you're not throwing gasoline on the fire anymore, but it was going on for so long. And your genetic vulnerability is to your brain making myelin antibodies. I'm making it up for you right now. Or it's your thyroid making thyroid antibodies. So you stop gluten and you still are producing the antibodies to your thyroid. It becomes self-perpetuating. Sometimes the antibodies go down the thyroid, but if there are other inflammatory triggers, it's like your system is trigger happy and it goes right back to where it was with brain antibodies or lung antibodies. So, Jennifer, that's the main concern. I would strongly suggest you do a group of the Zoomers. And we'll put the link in here because the lab offers packages. You can do 6 Zoomers and save, I don't know, $400, $500. You can do 8 Zoomers and save $600. I don't know the numbers. I don't pay attention to that, but there are some packages. And I would do a bunch of the Zoomers to see, always the wheat and NeuroZoomer Plus as the primaries, but I would do a number of them to see what your immune system's fighting right now. And that could have been contributed to and fueled by the carbon monoxide poisoning. And now the carbon monoxide poisoning is gone, but those antibodies can be self-perpetuating and you're killing off brain cells, or you're killing off joints and connective tissue or whatever it should be for you. Ron's on Zoom. I'm 79 years old with low to no libido, chronic fatigue, heart AFib, high blood pressure. Would testosterone cream help with the libido, etc.? Thanks for your expertise, Ron. Hey, Ron, I would not do that because you're throwing jet fuel into a beat up Volkswagen. So you have to rebuild your Volkswagen, man. Yeah, you need to rebuild cell by cell. How do you do that? By working with a functional medicine practitioner. And, maybe you can take low doses of testosterone, low doses, not the dose that your medic would want you to take, because your system at 79 years old, beat up and with AFib and chronic fatigue, you don't want to throw jet fuel in a beat up Volkswagen. You just don't want to do it. You need to get rid of the AFib and the chronic fatigue. And, that's functional medicine stuff. We do that all the time. I'll just give you an example. It's because it comes up to tell you. I've had 2 patients that developed AFib and their cardiologist gave them medications. It was helping a little bit, but not very much. And then they told me about it. And I said, do you have a smart box on your house outside? And they said, well, yeah, they installed it last year. I said, when did the AFib start? About 8 months ago. Could that have something to do with it, Doc? I said, get that smart box off of your house. And the result was for both of them, the AFib went away in about a month. Hi. I'm going to be a couple of minutes. I'm on a roll. I'm getting the hook from my wife because it's Gio's bedtime and we have to check for scorpions in the bedroom. So can I have 10 minutes? Would that be okay? Huh? Come here. But he won't stay long because I'm just reading questions now. You can't see anybody. That's all. I think he's tired and he wants to go. All right, you want to go with mommy? Okay. Oh. All right, well, let's try another question then. Let me get my glasses on. Kat on Facebook says, for more vitality, I've been on compounded hormones for some years. I've had one holistic practitioner saying I'll need to be on them for the rest of my life. However, another practitioner I went to said probably not. In general, or does it matter person to person? Does one have to be on bioidenticals forever? I think my son's giving me the hook. Marzi, can you come back and get him, please? Oh, no, he says no hormones, no hormones. No hormones. So the concept, no hormones. Okay. Just take, please. No, you gotta go, man. Okay. So let's finish this question. That's taking. Oh, that's really good. But okay. Did they test you to see if you had a deficiency of hormones? So this is the most common area in medicine where the Marzi just pointed out all the hearts and the laughs that are coming up. Thanks so much. On Geo, it's all about Geo, of course. This is the most common area in medicine that's shotgun medicine. They just shotgun them into you because you feel better. This 79-year-old Ron would feel better on testosterone, but his system is so beat up right now, you run the risk of blowing your engine, so to say. So did they do blood tests on that? And I would venture the answer is no, they didn't, because you may not have had low estrogen levels or low testosterone levels, but shotgunning it in always helps you feel better. So you've got to identify what your system doing right now. And the more hormones you take, the less your system has to work. So if you've been on them for years, it's likely that there's an insufficiency in your production right now. It's hard to say. You need to work with a functional medicine doc that understands about rebuilding glandular tissue and how to do it. Sorry, it's not an easy answer. That's the best I can give you right now on that one. Dr. Sue on YouTube says, Which multivitamin and mineral formula would you recommend for women over 60? Is liposomal vitamin C better bioavailability than an ester C for patients with GI sensitivities? Yes. If you have GI sensitivities, taking vitamin C the way I do in a powdered form is not great. It's better not to, or just take a little bit, just low dose vitamin C and take most of your vitamin C liposomally. That would be a better idea. So, okay, thank you. I'll be there soon. Okay. Come back to this now. Will gluten affect blood glucose and or thyroid levels? Oh my goodness, yes. Oh, incredibly. I'm going to take a moment to open up this presentation so I can give you the exact numbers on this one because it's so jaw-dropping when you see it. It's hard to imagine how come every doctor in the world doesn't know this. So the question, will gluten affect my blood pressure or my blood glucose level? The answer is absolutely yes. And let me pull up, there we go. Here's the study. So I'm going to bring this study up and I'm going to share my screen, and let me share screen, please. And let's see here. Share screen. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So this comes from Norway. And look at the title of the study: Maternal and Child Gluten Intake and Association with Type 1 Diabetes. And they looked at 86,000 children over a 9-year period. They recruited 86,000 children over 9 years, and they followed them for another 10 years. And what did they find? They looked at, was mother eating gluten in the first 22 weeks of pregnancy? And then after birth, was the child eating gluten in the first 18 months? And the average follow-up time for this was 12 years. And what they found was that if the child was eating gluten in the first 18 months, there was a 46% increased risk of developing diabetes for each 10 grams per day of gluten consumed. Let me say that again. If a child was eating gluten in the first 18 months of life, there was a 46% increased risk in these 86,000 kids of developing type 1 diabetes for each 10 grams per day of gluten. So what's 10 grams? And their summary was, our results show that a higher intake of gluten by the child at an early age gives a higher risk of type 1 diabetes. The average amount of gluten in a single slice of bread ranges from 2 to 4 grams. So if a child has the equivalent of 2 to 3 slices of bread a day or pasta, they run the risk of, they increase their risk of developing diabetes dramatically. What are your kids eating in terms of bread and wheat products? So I'm going to stop sharing there now. And I mean, that was just a jaw-dropping study. When I saw that one, it took me over the edge on that. All right, folks, it's 10 minutes after the hour. I'm sorry it goes so quickly. Thank you all so very much. Give us a thumbs up if you like us. And if you, Anne's going to tell you how to, if you want SMS text messages the day of Facebook Live to know what the topic's about, just let us know. And we'll put a link in here if there is one, so that you can let us know that you'd like to be notified. And then we will tell you, like for today, we put a cute picture of me with Gio on Sunday at the beach. And I said, you know, what's the juice? What's the juice? And what we got to today, and I will continue this in the future, but what we got to today was vitamin C, check your adrenal glands, adaptogens, critically important adaptogens, and check for inflammation starting with the Wheat Zoomer and the Neural Zoomer Plus. Thanks so very much for your attention and for joining us. Makes our day knowing that we're reaching